Imagine spending years building your dream home, only for your HOA to decide they know better, and literally tear down your fence without warning. But what they didn't expect was that I'd turn their own arrogance into the neighborhood's biggest embarrassment. This is the story of how I turned their power trip into poetic justice. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable HOA revenge stories, and let's get into it. It started a few years ago when I moved into what was supposed to be my peaceful suburban home. The neighborhood was clean, quiet, and organized. A little too organized. The HOA had rules for everything: the color of your curtains, the type of flowers you could plant, and even the length of your grass. I thought it was just typical suburban control, but I had no idea how far they would go. When I first installed my fence, it was more about privacy than decoration. I wanted to enjoy my backyard without feeling watched. The fence was beautiful, wooden, sturdy, and matched my home perfectly. I submitted my plans like everyone else, and after weeks of no response, I assumed everything was approved. A few days later, I came home to find my fence completely gone. Not damaged, not vandalized. Gone. The HOA had sent a crew to tear it down, claiming it violated neighborhood uniformity standards. I was livid. I called, emailed, even showed up to their office, but they brushed me off like I was some nuisance. They said if I wanted to rebuild it, I'd need to apply properly and wait for approval. The arrogance was unreal. I tried to stay calm, but every time I looked at that open yard, my anger grew. They had no right to do that, and deep down, I knew I wasn't going to let it go. I started digging through the HOA bylaws, reading every single clause, every line. Turns out they were in the wrong. They never officially denied my fence application, which meant they had no authority to remove it. That discovery lit a fire in me. I decided to hit back, not with violence, but with something they couldn't fine or silence. My plan wasn't immediate. I wanted them to feel what I felt, to have their sense of control turned against them. So I waited for the perfect opportunity. It came when the HOA decided to beautify the common area next to my property. They installed a new metal fence, sleek, expensive, and supposedly representative of the community's high standards. That's when I knew exactly what to do. One night, under the glow of my porch light, I grabbed a can of bright red spray paint and wrote 3 massive words across their shiny new fence: "No trespassing, private property." The next morning, chaos erupted. HOA board members were storming around like hornets. Neighbors peeked out from windows, whispering and laughing. The HOA called me immediately, furious, demanding that I remove it. But I didn't, because technically that fence was built partially on my land. I had proof. The land survey showed that a few inches of the fence crossed the property line. They had unknowingly trespassed on my property, and I just made sure everyone knew it. That's when things really started heating up. The HOA tried to threaten me with fines, but every time they did, I sent them a copy of the survey and reminded them that they were the ones in violation. Word spread through the neighborhood. For once, people weren't afraid of the HOA, they were laughing at them. They became the joke of the street, the very organization that broke its own rules. Chapter 2 began when they realized they couldn't intimidate me anymore. The HOA started sending letters claiming defamation and damage to community property. I countered with legal language of my own. Every document I sent was copied to the city's zoning office, the county assessor, and even a local news outlet that loved stories about HOA abuse. The HOA board tried to have an emergency meeting, but when neighbors learned what had happened, many of them showed up too. The meeting turned into a spectacle. People started bringing up their own grievances: unfair fines, forced landscaping, and invasive inspections. The once feared HOA president, Mr. Callahan, was visibly cracking under pressure. He stammered through excuses, but no one was buying it. The tension between the HOA and the community was boiling. The HOA tried to repaint their fence overnight, but I was ready. The next morning, I printed out copies of the survey and taped them all along the fence, highlighting the property line in bold red. The words, "No trespassing," might have been painted over, but now the proof was there for everyone to see. Soon, homeowners started questioning why the HOA was spending everyone's dues fighting me instead of fixing the park lights or maintaining the pool. The cracks were showing. A few weeks later, a group of homeowners called for a vote to remove several board members. Mr. Callahan tried to stop it, but he couldn't. They were voted out in a landslide. The neighborhood had finally had enough. In Chapter 3, the aftermath began. The new board was more transparent, fair, and cooperative. They immediately sent me a formal apology and offered to pay for my original fence reconstruction. I accepted, but I didn't stop there. I asked them to implement a new policy that required the HOA to notify and get written consent from property owners before touching any structure near a boundary line. They agreed unanimously. My new fence went up exactly the way I wanted, this time stronger and higher than before. The HOA fence remained, clean, repaired, but forever marked in everyone's memory. Neighbors still joked about the no trespassing incident. Some even used it as a symbol of standing up to unfair authority. Mr. Callahan, the old president, moved out quietly a few months later. Word was he couldn't handle the embarrassment. But to me, it wasn't just about revenge, it was about fairness, about standing up for yourself when others misuse their power. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't destruction, it's exposure. And as I stood there looking at my fence, I realized I hadn't just reclaimed my yard. I'd reclaimed the peace they tried to take from me. If you enjoyed this story of HOA karma and sweet revenge, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and share this video with someone who's ever dealt with HOA nonsense. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes standing your ground is the best way to make a statement.